This sporting great is literally a giant of British athletics. Despite excelling at most sports as a child, his natural strength saw him take up the shot put, an event he dominated as British champion for 13 years. Twice the world's strongest man, he is Geoff Capes. Geoff, don't take this the wrong way. And that's very important.
That's great, and it's sitting there, you know, smack. Yeah, all right.
It is very important that a man your size does not take this the wrong way. But when
if there's tricky questions, you know, I mean, I don't want cornering into that aspect.
No. When I mentioned to people that I was interviewing you for Sporting Greats, you would not believe the amount of people that said, they didn't say, oh, Olympian athlete, they didn't say British champion, European champion, Commonwealth champion. Do you know what they said?
Strongman.
No, they said, oh, he likes budgies.
Budgies, yeah.
That's what they said, and they say it fondly.
Yeah.
They say he's a budgie fancier.
That's correct, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's strange really, because all those years back, I suppose, living in the fens of Lincolnshire, I was very much an ornithologist and kept all sorts of wild animals and birds and everything, you know, picking them up with a broken wing. And I was like a naturalist, but living in that particular part of the country. But then, as sport, you know, was part of my life, you become more aggressive in yourself, you know, and everything became, if you like, blinkered. Training, being hard, being big, strong, and competing, being aggressive to compete and stuff. And I needed an opposite. And, you know, I thought to myself, what do I do? Because I could go over the top, you know, and be aggressive all the time, as people believe that you are, because they only see you on television, and like 98 point whatever it is members of the general public only see you in an aggressive mode.
Yes.
But you must have an opposite in life. So I chose budgerigars.
Now, who would have been responsible for this, Geoff? I mean, who would have introduced you, or how would you have come across budgies?
Well, I was a policeman at the time, and I remember getting a distress warrant to go and arrest a certain person in Peterborough, and I used to drive a Panda then, you know. I used to put it on, you know, and then go brum brum and run with it, you know. But anyway, I went to this guy's house and I knocked on the door and nobody came, and I looked in the window after a little bit of time, and I noticed all these budgerigars in cages, all different colours that I've never seen before. Because when you go into a pet shop, you only seen a green one or a blue one or whatever. Yeah. But these were all colours. And he eventually came to the door, and I just said, can I come in and look at your budgies, and totally forgot about the warrant. I was amazed that, you know. So he asked me in and sat me down and gave me a biscuit and a cup of tea, chip cup. I always remember the chip cup. And he taught me, you know, the colours and the breeding and stuff in about an hour. And I says, "Bummy neck," I said, "you're under arrest," and gave him the warrant. I said, "Can you come with me?" You know, and took him down the neck, bailed him out, brought him back, and he started me. Actually, gave me my first 3 pairs of budgies.
Amazing. Tell me, were you always a big lad?
I was born, I suppose, contrary to rumours. You know, I mean, I think I was about 12'9" when I was born. You know, so
your poor mother.
Yeah, but my mum was a big lady. You know, it was like shelling peas. I'm one of 5 boys. You know, and all the same size. One of 9 kids. And yeah, I was always big, but not big. I was always sinewy. You know, athletic, very strong. Early on, even. And always fighting for my corner, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Always being challenged and challenging. You know, I wanted to be top dog. I wanted to be the best at fighting and running and anything to do with sport. I wanted to be the best. And also the roughest, toughest kid on the block.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, who was your inspiration for that? I mean, did you feel you needed to survive, or did you need to prove anything, or?
Well, I suppose because I come from a big family and a very hard background, very similar, I suppose, to the inner city, but in a parallel, living in the fens of Lincolnshire. You know, as I said, one of 9 kids, not, you know, awash with money. In fact, I think, the only shot putter in the All England schools throwing in bare feet because I couldn't afford plimsolls, let alone throwing shoes. you know, and there's a lot of obstacles put in your way by your headmaster and stuff like this. You were banned from joining an athletics club because you were in the athletics club, so they ban you from school sports. There was all sorts of obstacles.
Why do you think that was, Geoff? Most schools are pretty pleased to have representative honours.
Today, yes, yeah. But then it was more suppressive society. I think my headmaster came from an ex-Borstal school, and he wanted to suppress the students in the way he believed and thought and stuff like this. We even had handwriting lessons every morning for an hour to get an italic type writing, you know, to his belief and
standard, yeah.
And standard. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, but the thing is, but suppression. There's a lot wrong with suppression.
And there's a free spirit in you because, as you say, you grew up in a rural community, and life then involved working on a farm. I mean, you didn't own a farm, but you worked on a farm.
No, we didn't own. My dad was a ganger, and a ganger actually supplies men to do all the farming work within the community. So very early on, you know, I was like driving a tractor when I was 4 or 5, you know, picking up weights, you know, that weighed.
I thought you were going to say picking up tractors.
Oh no, not that. But again, you see, in that kind of environment, you was always challenged, if you like. You was a big kid, a big lad and stuff like this, so you must be strong. So I suppose in a way it was easy to get work out of a kid rather than an older chap, and because the kid had a boy's wages. But if he was equal to a man, it was cheaper. Of
course.
You know, so...
so who was it then that took you in hand, that spotted your potential and honed that?
Well, there was a chap from the village, also was an Olympian in the '68, Stuart Story, and in fact he's a commentator now for BBC on athletics. He came from the same village but the other side of the track, meaning that he went to grammar school and I certainly didn't. He went on to Loughborough and so on, and I certainly didn't. But I suppose he saw this talent of this kid who was able to participate in any sport and do well, and had a gift of competitiveness and the aggression and the will and the want to succeed.
Now, you went on, thanks to being spotted by Stuart and whoever then brought out the best in you after that, you went on to 3 Olympic Games, 72, 76 and 1980. Now, although you got better with each Games, you never took home a medal.
No.
I heard that you suffered, and I just wonder if that's true, you suffered very badly from nerves on big occasions. I
think it was a combination. When you analyse it, you know, I also won a lot of other medals as well for lesser games, like European Commonwealth Games, and European Games, and other such like internationals, and won and beat all the best in the world. But, you know, every 4 years a Games comes round, you know, it's only 3 attempts in 12 years or thereabouts. And I think the suppression, again, by people, outside pressures, your boss, your mother, you know, your time off, and people, you know, kind of, I suppose, putting all this pressure on you, of expecting you. Even the media hang medals on you before you go, which is one of the biggest crimes in the UK. You know, putting medals on young athletes and putting that extra pressure of expecting them to do well. But I think the whole aspect of sport, especially athletics, has changed since I was there. You know, even the officials put pressure on you. You know, you was always fighting the officials as well. You know,
in one case, literally in Prague.
Oh crikey!
Wasn't it? What year? It was
yes.
1978.
Oh dear.
Why did you and that gentleman not see eye to eye?
Well, it's quite funny actually, because I loved the headlines. Capes bounces check. You know, and. And they obviously make up their own mind what they want to put in the paper. But the thing is, what it boiled down to, in the qualifying, you have a certain amount of numbers on your person, such on your vest and on your tracksuit. Well, I qualified. I was #1 qualifier from the previous day, and I went out to the final with the same vest on, because we only got one vest then, you know, and it stinks to have, and the numbers are like peeling off, and all sorts of horrible things are happening to your clothes. And the man says, "Where is your other number, Mr. Capes?" You know, and all this sort of. I says, "I ain't got one, mate," you know. And he says, "You not compete if you not have one." And I said, "I'm going." They said, "No, you're not." And they started kind of tugging me, and they stood in front of the door, and I got a little bit heated, and I wanted to go and compete, and they started tugging me again, and I'm going, and I just pulled them apart like that, and I went straight down the steps. supposedly there was a problem, and I thought I was defending myself. But you see, when you're ready to compete, you're in you know, this guy that's going out, you're going to rip people's heads off, you know, but you try and channel it within the ball, you know, and you get out there and you're going to try and do your best. And this guy's trying to attack you physically because you haven't got a number on, you know, which is absolutely ridiculous.
It was a case of bad timing on his behalf.
So all the officials come, you know, an ad hoc meeting, you know, totally impromptu, and it says, "You're banned." I said, "What for?" He says, "Ungentlemanly conduct." I said, "Hang on." I said, "We're not even a field of play. I haven't cheated. I haven't fouled. I'm not even in the arena. How can you ban me?" He says, "Well, we just have." They just made it up.
Geoffrey Capes, Britain's shot putter, was tonight disqualified from the European Championship event in Prague. Ron Pickering, who's in the stadium, tells the story.
It is not often that you see a 6'5", 20-stone giant in tears, but this is what we witnessed as Geoffrey Capes left the stadium after being disqualified from the shot final. He turned up for the final as the fourth best qualifier, wearing the same number 715 on his back, but no number on his front. Despite there being a clear rule that two numbers should be worn, most officials are tolerant because numbers tend to restrict the throwers. Capes wore only one number yesterday and only one in Montreal, but despite his protest, he was told to leave. Indeed, he insists that he was physically urged to leave, and the big policeman doesn't take kindly to that sort of treatment. It may well transpire that his angry reaction to the physical rejection is what has caused his disqualification. But the British officials, the press and supporters here in Prague cannot help reflecting on whether his forthright statements so recently made about Eastern European shot putters on anabolic steroids might have been noted and have hardly made him popular in these parts. It certainly seems a petty piece of bureaucracy has caused a very sad affair when a little sympathy could have solved the problem.
So when you packed in the amateur side, I mean, that was after the 1980 Olympics, was it?
Yes, I turned professional in September 1980.
Yeah. Now, to get to the Olympics, you packed in your job in the police force.
Oh, I had to pack up my job in the police force because the Russian invasion of Afghanistan was a big political hot potato at that particular time. And as a policeman also, I was paid by the local authority, which was a conservative authority, and the government, which was conservative. And the pressure from dissident groups threatening your children and, you know, threatening to shoot you and all sorts of things. And then Margaret Thatcher saying, "You can't go." You know, and I said, "Whoa, hang on here, missus, you know, because, you know, this is a sport. And you're using us as a political pawn for your own means and ends." You know, I said, "You stop trading with Russia, we will not go." I think the problem lies mainly with the youngsters, the young ones, especially the swimmers, who are only 14 or 15 years old. But the more experienced ones of us feel that they've just got to get on with the job of training and put aside all the unsureness about going to Moscow and get on with the training. And my advice is to them is that we are going, believe that we are going, and just get on with the training.
So the psychological pressure is not affecting you?
The psychological pressure, in fact, isn't at all affecting me. It's making me stronger, more determined that I will be there in Moscow.
Mrs. Thatcher at Question Time today defended the government's latest moves.
It really would not make sense to advise athletes not to go and then to give special leave to civil servants over and above their annual leave so that they could go. For that reason, we are not going to give special leave either to them or the defence.
You gave up your job, you went out there, you competed in that, your third Olympics then. And then you, as I say, you turned professional. When you left the amateur game, I mean, did you leave it on good terms? Did you leave it disillusioned?
I think it was a bit of both, really, because I'd spent so long in it. And don't forget, I started my career when I was 6 years old, and I'm now 30 years old at that particular point. And I didn't see, you know, icing on the cake or something at the end of the rainbow, or at that particular point. Sure. I needed another challenge. And I started getting bored, and because it was repetitive, going to the same places, competing against the same people. So I needed another challenge. So
and what sort of challenge did professionalism offer?
Well, rightfully or wrongly, you know, at that particular time, amateur athletics was amateur. There wasn't money in amateur sport. In the real sense of the word, we weren't allowed to take money, and it was still amateur. And it didn't turn pro in athletics until 3 years after I turned pro, which is really ironic, you know. And I'd already turned pro in Highland Games, and it was really that challenge of a new sport, a new fresh air scenario, and following other greats like Arthur Rowe and Billy Anderson and Grant Anderson up in the Games of Scotland, which have been going on, don't forget, for nearly 1,000 years. So I wanted to believe to be part of history. So I travelled up there and started competing on the game circuit, which is really more amateur than professional. The organisation and I suppose you know, it's more garden fate scenario in Scotland, but had a history.
Sure.
And I felt that I was going to be part of history, or wanted to be part of history as well.
But then against that garden fate scenario, there was the circus scenario of world's strongest man. I mean, that was something else. To be able to do, I mean, you did that at a British level, at a European level, at a world level, and you won the world title twice there.
Yeah.
I mean, when you look back on that, do you frighten yourself what you were required to do on shows like that?
Well, I think I found it more easier than a lot of the guys that do it today because of my sporting background, my athletic skills that came from being an Olympic athlete, learning skills in the Highland Games, which is a multitude of events and not just one event, and then going into, you know, into strongman, if you like. Again, it was a multi-event situation, and because I had this inborn size, strength, and ability to adapt, I found it quite easy to do, you know. And like you said, I won the British 3 times, the European 3 times. Comes twice in the world, #1, and twice second, you know. So I could adapt quite easily. And I think it was my natural ability in the skill factor that carried me through.
Well, let's see if Geoff Capes fulfills that prediction made by his opponent here, John Gamble. And Gamble goes for the slow and steady approach, but Big Geoff is building up quite a head of steam. Let's see which technique works out the best. The one thing everybody was agreed on, don't change your grip. So, one circuit for John Gamble, and Geoff Capes goes charging on. And this is good going. 2 complete circuits. Now he's trying to adjust, but it's gone. But the best so far.
I wonder what sort of legacy comes from that, because there are people who we as TV viewers would have watched and cheered on, or perhaps cheered you on against them or whatever, who are very sadly no longer with us, and they were not old men. I mean, they died quite young. I mean, what is the theory there?
Well, I think basically, I mean, if you refer to, you know, a great competitor, John Paul Sigmarsson from Iceland, is obviously probably the best known. I mean, John was a kickboxer as well, and he has basically a big body but a small frame, you know, and obviously trained hard to be more muscular, and he was more of a bodybuilder than a strongman, but he was very, very athletic. But I didn't know until obviously after he died that his family had a hereditary problem. His father died young, his uncle died young, all with heart problems.
And is that something that worries you? The history of occurrence of big framed men?
No, well, I'm naturally big anyway. I'm genetically big, and that has been proved through my brothers, sisters and children and going back. And, you know, in the future, our children now, my son, you know, is a semi-pro competitor. My daughter's 6 foot. Lewis is about 6'5", 6'6", and 21 stone. Of, you know, pure athletic talent, you know, genetically big. And I think it is horses for courses. There's no way I'd be a jockey, you know. I mean, but not everybody can be a strongman or a shot putter, you know.
See, Geoff, you have this balance. So many big people are regarded as unfit. Well, I can't say that about you. I mean, there's the record there to prove. But you have a big frame. What is life like being a big man on a day-to-day basis? Whether it's getting a seat on a bus or whether it's buying clothes or.
I think firstly it's expensive being big, you know, because 99.9% of the people are within the norm, if you like. But it's really strange. You can smoke 50 a day and drink 20 pints of beer a day, and if you're within the norm, you don't have to have medical. You know what I mean? But you can be abnormal in your abuses of life. But you can be normal in terms of your food intake and everything else. But you're genetically big, all of a sudden you're going to have a problem in life. You know, I mean, my granddad, my father's father, died. I think he was going to the pub, fell off his bike, broke his leg and got pneumonia, and he was 82. You know, my dad's 77. My mum's father, who was 6'6" and 23, 24 stone, was in his 80s when he died. So again, genetically, within the family, we've got longevity. You know, so I'm not afraid. I'm 50 years old now, you know. And in my mind, I think you also got to believe that you're fit, healthy, and you've got a long way to go. And I certainly believe that.
It was in a local park in Lincolnshire, in the shadow of his old school, that the transition from local tough guy to international athlete began. His first concrete circle and a pair of potato weights, each weighing 4 stone, channeled Cape's energy into sport.
Even when I was like working part-time or left school, I worked in a coal yard and stuff. I used to lift the weights and these old sack, what we call 4-stone sack weights. I used to lift 2 in each hand, you know, balance them on my thumbs. I used to tie a 4-stone weight to my little finger and write my name. You know, I used to do all sorts of little tricks. Easy.
I want to conjure up another image without making light of the case, but I want to go back to your time you were a constable. Was a constable?
I was, well, I was a mister later on because I was a PTI, but I was a PC.
A PC?
A PC.
I want to refer you to
whatever.
a case which was called the Cambridge rapist case. And there were reports.
Where did you find that?
Well, we're not actually laughing at obviously what happened, but in an attempt to track down this criminal, they sent Constable Capes in, undercover, basically. Tell us more.
Well, it wasn't just me. There was obviously a lot of us, you know, undercover. And we had a main problem of, it used to be, you know, the Cambridge rapist. It was a very serious matter. And we was all shipped in at various times at night, and we had to hide, literally. And it was like cold and wet and horrible, and you used to wear whatever you could. And I had this big old fur coat and I think it was a musquash or muskrat hat, Russian thing.
Yes.
And you know, with ear flaps and stuff. And I decided, because of the very nature of where it was, I went up a tree. You see, rather than hide in somebody's shed or in somebody's garden, I thought up, out of sight, in the dark. I could see visually all around me and who was coming, and you know, and there was a policeman every 300 or 400 yards. So here I was up this tree, you know, and I think at this particular time a lady reported an animal,
a wild animal, yes,
tree.
stalking the neighbourhood up the tree. So it's a good job nobody took a dart gun to you or whatever.
And it was me.
And it was you.
Yeah.
And it was you. It was you. Must have been a big tree.
Yeah, it was a big tree, you know. So I propped myself up and tied myself on, you know.
With a deputy dog hat on.
Oh dear,
Yeah.
you could.
Geoff Capes, it's been fascinating talking to you. Every success is what lies ahead. And thanks very much.
Thank you very much. Enjoyed it.
Thank you.